All matter has mass. Mass is a measure of the number of particles or amount of matter something has. The bigger basketball has more particles, and the smaller one has fewer particles of matter. Same thing for the rock and the little rock, okay? How many particles are make up of something? Of course, something that has more particles has more matter. Alright, and therefore they'll probably weigh more or be more massive. But weight and mass are different. Remember, we talked about gravity has everything to do with weight, and mass pretty much stays the same. Gravity has something to do with weight. All matter has volume. Volume is a measure of the space matter occupies. See the rock and the sponge? They both occupy the same amount of space because they're around the same size. That don't mean that they have the same amount of matter, okay? And you can also check volume in containers as well. If we have a cup coming up and you put the cup in water upside down, there's air still in that cup, and that will force the water, will not allow the water to come in. If I turn the cup sideways, then I will allow the air to come up, and you'll see it bubbling, and then the water can rush into the cup. You might have seen that before. Alright, so air is matter, like I said. Matter is anything with mass and volume is only saying the amount of space it takes up, and mass is the amount of particles it has. Okay, you can use these things to find out density. Density is the measure of the mass packed into a volume. How tightly packed are the particles in an object? You got the same size rock as you do sponge, but you know that the rock has way more massive or heavier atoms than the sponge does. The sponge has a lot more air molecules in it than the rock does. The rock has more mass in the same size volume, so the density is higher. Okay, matter, amount of matter, particles, space taken up, density, amount of mass per volume. Alright, we're going to look at buoyancy, weight, and density. Both of these boats are less dense than the water. That way they can float. If they were more dense than water, they would sink. Alright? Well, one's aluminum and the other one is wooden. But if it started to rain and the water started to fill up each one of these boats, the wooden canoe would be able to displace the water better because it's not as heavy as the metal boat. So the metal canoe would start to sink because the water inside of it would make it more dense than the water. Alright? It's all about density. So we know that matter is made up of particles. The amount of particles make up the mass. The size of it makes up the volume, and the density is how tightly packed the particles are. Alright, so how do you measure matter? Well, we learned about that with the King Henry drinks yucky, dirty chocolate milk. Alright, and you use the measurement system. We in the English system use the foot, the gallons, the pound, but the metric system, the SI unit, is used around the world. So in scientific lingo, we need to use the metric system. And as you can see on this next chart coming up, these are the units that we're going to use. You're going to use the metric SI system of length, and it's going to be the meter. You can have it in millimeters, really super small, centimeters, still pretty small, meters, a little bit longer than a yard. Then you got kilometers, which is 100 meter sticks. Okay, here goes your units right there. We learned all about them. King Henry drinks, the units go right there where the dash is, dirty chocolate milk. And then here's some more prefixes that they use in computers, the giga, the mega, all those kind of bytes, the micro, the nano, really super small. Alright, and then we're going to learn about unit conversions. Okay, we can do it this way, and we'll teach you this way in class, but the easiest way is to use the King Henry formula, where you can just put it out and just find out how many decimal places or places you need to move your decimal point, and it's going to work out exactly the same. Alright, so remember, all matter has particles. The amount of particles that something has in it tells it its mass, its weight in kilograms. The volume is how much space it takes up, and the density is how tightly packed those particles are.